In this tutorial, you'll be able to set up an instant deal notification search. The way we're going to do this is several parts. We will set up a Zillow search. We will then set up our workflow via Zapier, and ultimately we'll have a spreadsheet for properties that meet your criteria. You'll be able to see property details, metrics like cash flow, cash on cash return, as well as other variables that will help you assess if this property is a good deal or not. From there, we will automatically set up SMS texts if the property meets your criteria. For example, over $100 in cash flow. We will also set up the ability to send emails automatically to our agents. Let's go over to the AnalyticsAriel teachable course. I do have 2 files that you can purchase, which is a PDF document to follow through this YouTube video. It is not required but highly suggested, as well as the spreadsheet that I have here, which again is not required but highly suggested. Let's look at the PDF document. As an overview, this is for deal notifications. And the reason why I'm creating this is based off of my recent Bigger Pockets rookie podcasts that I did, where I actually detailed my own experience of how I would analyze deals automatically and just receive a text message if it met my criteria. What we're doing is automating a workflow to retrieve new property listings via email alerts and analyze profitability in Google Sheets. This will help save time, reduce costs, and set alerts. It works both for newbie and even experienced real estate investors that want to leverage technology to help streamline their workflows. This can include also agents and wholesalers. The best part about this tutorial is that it leverages no code at all. And if you want to learn more about what other technical tools can be used and even partner with others that are interested in real estate and tech, please join the Facebook community. Let's go over what you will accomplish within this tutorial. You will set up your buy box via Zillow. You will create an automated workflow for analyzing deals using Zapier, and you will also create an automated workflow for top deal notifications. That way you're not sifting for minutes or even hours through sheets or going through different tabs. You can automatically get that good deal to your phone. You will also learn basics of automation tools, data sources via APIs, and how to calculate real estate investing metrics. Now, there are just 3 prerequisites that I ask for. One is that you'll spend about 1 to 2 hours going through this tutorial from beginning to end. I suggest you either do it all at once or at maximum 3 sittings. The cost is $20 per month to start with a Zapier plan. Now, there are free methods to go about this, which I will detail more in the future. They usually leverage code, but if you want to go with a no-code solution, how I initially set this up, please create a starter plan for Zapier. I'm not an affiliate, so I get no benefit here. And third, mindset, be open-minded. Automation and tech are fun. There is no one solution fits all. You'll learn through this, hey, maybe I want to calculate additional real estate metrics or leverage other outside data sources. By following these steps in this tutorial, you'll have the information necessary to even expand upon this workflow. Please go to the Facebook group to ask additional questions, as the community could likely get to you faster than myself. And if you want to just skip doing this walkthrough and set up deal notifications instantly, then definitely check out Coffee Closers. By the time this is released, we will likely have our daily list building feature already available. To set up, there are 4 things you need to do, which is create a Gmail account, a Zillow Save Search, a Zapier account, and a Rapid API account. We are going to use this to receive property notifications. It also pairs really well with Zapier as well as other automation tools. When it comes to Zillow Save Search, we have to get new property listings. We can get this from our agent via MLS notifications or through other sites like Zillow, Redfin, and Realtor. In this example, we are going to use Zillow. It is free to set up your buy box. You can look here for more information on what is a buy box and how to set that up. I have a step-by-step tutorial on how to set up your Zillow saved search. Now, if you see that I'm going fast through this, it's because this is a free tutorial on YouTube. I have a course, Real Estate List Building Automation, that takes this in a very step-by-step format. You can go over to that as you finish this tutorial if you deem necessary. To create a Zapier account, again, you can create a Zapier account for free. However, since we're going to use a no-code solution, we will need to do more steps than usual for this tutorial. And thus, it would be $20 per month as of January 2024. And I am not an affiliate of Zapier. It is just one of my favorite tools that I use for automation. I actually use this in other areas of my workflows as well, not just for real estate. And the last step you'll take is creating a rapid API account. Now, when we want to enrich our data, so say we have 123 Main Street, that's not enough. We want to know how many bedrooms, bathrooms, the price of the property, as well what would it rent for. For us to get this information, we need to use an API. And as a quick overview, imagine you're at a fancy restaurant. You don't have access to the kitchen, but you want to order delicious food. That's where the waiter comes in. The waiter takes your order and relays it to the chef in the kitchen, who then prepares your meal and sends it back with the waiter. An API is like the waiter for software. It's a set of instruction and tools that lets different software programs talk to one another. It passes the data between different applications, like a waiter would pass food between the kitchen and with you sitting down in the seat. So you'll create a rapid API account. It takes about 5 minutes to do so, and we'll reference it later on. So now, time to the meat and action. Let's actually set up our new Zap. If you haven't already, make sure you go to Zillow, you create a buy box. Now I have plenty of buy boxes here. The wider you have your search, the more properties you're going to see in your email. You can auto have this to be read so that you don't have a bunch of new instant notifications. However, you need to make sure that subscriptions are set to on. And I suggest for this tutorial, making your buy box a bit wide and then narrowing it down once you have your workflow set up. You need to have at least one example email to go through. And if you don't have that, then Zapier can't be triggered. So in this case, I'm going to go with my single family home, Tampa, Florida search. So if you click into your searches, and I did that by going to my profile and looking at saved searches, I have my home city, Tampa. I could see all properties for sale. I'm only looking for those under 500K. I suggest to have a bandwidth between maybe 100K or so 400 to 500. But in this case, I'm making it a wider search so I could set this tool up. You could select your beds and baths. Here, I'm selecting just houses. And for my filters, I'm looking at properties with at least 1,250 square feet. Now that I have my saved search, I may wait a day or so, and within my email, I should see those searches come through. So let's look at one of them. From my email, I've received new listing 8321 and Greenwood Ave, Tampa, Florida. And it says your SFH, which is single family home, Tampa, Florida search. Make sure you have the name of your search. You could name it anything. You could say just my search, and you'll see that change right in here. From within our email, we see that the home has been listed for sale, the price, bedrooms, baths, square footage, as well as the property full address once again. Now, in the past, I had prior videos of scraping the information from within the email. However, as most things do with technology, things change. So this information can no longer be scraped directly from within the email. From the subject line, we could see that we have the necessary information that we're looking for, which is a property address. So how do we actually start to process this information? What we don't want to do is manually start to analyze this deal every time it comes into our inbox. This is going to be tedious and prone to error. So instead, we want to create a workflow that will be kicked off every single time we have a new email similar to this. So this is where we use Zapier. If you haven't already, create your Zapier account, sign up for the starter plan. Here I have a whole set of Zaps. If you go to your dashboard, you'll see all of them, and you'll see the ability to create a Zap. The first one we're going to do is add new listing. So you'll click create Zap. And if you go back over to the PDF document, you could see here the walkthrough step-by-step of going to Zapier, your dashboard, and creating a new Zap. So the way Zap's work or automation workflows is something has to trigger it. So say if someone's standing outside of your house or your apartment and they're waiting to come in, how are they going to know? How are you going to know to let them in? Usually someone knocks or rings a doorbell. That's the trigger for your action to open the door. Using and creating Zaps is similar. We need some sort of trigger. So for our trigger, it's going to be using Gmail. Now here I'm going to kind of walk through the steps that I took to create this. So I'm going to go to edit my Zap, edit existing draft, and here you're going to find Gmail. Now there's different events that can kick off our Zap. We can kick off our Zap whenever there's a new attachment, whenever there's a starred email, but in this case, we want to do new email matching search because we have a particular search that we're looking for. And if you go over to the PDF document, you'll be able to see what that search is. So we're going to use Gmail search operators. This is a common thing that if you want to search for unread messages or those that came from a particular email address, you can do so using Gmail search operators. In this case, we're going to look for emails that come from instantupdates@mail.zello.com. The subject needs to be new listing, and it also needs to contain our search name because maybe we have 10 different searches. Like in my case, if we go over to all of my saved searches here, I have 6 different ones. So make sure you have your search name, and you're going to replace that with where I have your Zillow saved search name. So you will copy this information and bring it over to your Gmail account. When you paste it up top, and here I've changed it to single family home, Tampa, Florida, we could then see all of our emails that match a new listing. Just click into one of them and go over each of these emails that I've received. You can see they all look pretty similar and all have the property address at the front. So here we have new email matching search. Set up your account. Just allow access for Zapier to access your Gmail account. For the trigger, you're going to input the same exact search that you have, hit continue. And when you test this record, it's going to look for this email. Again, you have to have the email that exists within your Gmail account. If when you saved your search, if it was too narrow and you haven't received any new listings, then I would encourage you to widen that search temporarily just so that you could have emails to play around with. So here you'll see different emails that have come through. I'm just going to go with the first one that it's found, email C, and continue with selected record. The next step that we're going to do is now an actual step. So we have our trigger, which we have up here, and next is creating a step. We want to extract the property address. We have here the property address within our subject line. We just want to get this so we could then start to build our spreadsheet and get information for this property. So in order to do so, we need to remove that information that's around this property address. We want to remove new listing and this whole your search part as well. If you are familiar with Python programming, I highly encourage you to just do this in Python as a Zapier Python code step. But for our no code solution, I'll show you how to do this without touching any Python. So for your next step, you're going to choose Formatter by Zapier. Your event will be text. Click continue. What we want to do is split our text. We just want to get that address. So if we look back into our email, we see there's a colon and a space. So what we could do is enter that colon and a space as our separator. What we want to separate is our subject line. If we click in here, we could see for step number 1 or trigger number 1, there's different elements from our email that Zapier automatically parsed, one of them being our subject line. So you're going to click on this. Then make sure again that you have the colon and your space so that we can split the object by that criteria. The first object should be just the new listing. And afterwards, since we split it by the colon and space, it should be everything that comes after. So in that case, we want to select the second segment that's going to have address. Click continue. And when you test this step, we could see we no longer have that new listing in the front. We just have property address and then some extra text. We need to remove this extra text. We're adding a step. It's called Formatter by Zapier. It's text. The only thing that changes here are two things. One is our input. Our input is no longer the subject line. We now have our output where we remove that first part of our subject line. So click on this. And for our separator, it's going to be dot space your, because we want to separate everything that's before and after this. Because address becomes before our separator, we are going to get the first segment in our index. Click continue, and now we have our property address. Our property address is street, city, state, and zip code. Now we want to actually get information because ultimately we're looking to bring our property as well as automatically calculate real estate metrics within a spreadsheet. So to do so, we are going to create a request to an API. For our API, we're going to use Zillow.com by API Maker that is on Rapid API. Before we dive into this API, I want to preface, there are a variety of real estate data options. While I used Rapid API Zillow.com API in this tutorial for its free tier and ease of use, there are a ton of real estate APIs out there. The best choice depends on your project needs and budget. Real estate APIs vary in price based on data quality, volume, and rate limits. For smaller projects like this one and prototyping, I typically use web scraping APIs that are built by third-party vendors. However, if you're looking to build out a larger workflow or even your own application, I suggest to explore options like Real Estate API, Batch Data, Atom, Estated, Cherry, or Regrid. These typically require monthly contracts. Here you could find Real Estate API. They're able to get county records and much more. Cherry, which is good for investment management and underwriting decisions. Real Estate API, and you could also sync with CoreLogic too. Now, the transparency here is that these typically require monthly contracts, anywhere from maybe $600 a month and more. That is why I suggest to start off with web scraping APIs, as they are usually free to start off with. Now, don't forget that flexibility is key. Don't hesitate to swap out the API that I'm using in this tutorial for your own needs and budget. If you see one that is for Realtor or Trulia or another site that you deem important and accurate, feel free to replace it in the one that I'm using in this tutorial. And lastly, I am not an affiliate of Rapid API Zillow.com. I simply choose it for its beginner friendliness and free access. Now that we have that out of the way, when you come over to your Rapid API account, you should see yourself signed in on the right-hand side. Now, using the link, you could find Zillow-Com1 by API Maker. If you have any questions regarding the data, please reach out to the creators themselves. Now, as you can see on the left-hand side, we have endpoints. Think of endpoints as folders where you can retrieve data. Here we have property details that we're going to use. Other endpoints include images. If you're searching for images for a particular property, you could also pull out Zestimate, as well as information for, say, an entire city. I have prior videos on how to do this with Python. However, this tutorial is not using code. So how are we going to actually extract information? We're going to use the property details endpoint. And for what we can see here, there are some requirements. So we have our API key, which you should see a long string here. If you've signed up above, you should see subscribe or test if you've already subscribed to this endpoint. Now, there are optional parameters. Think of these as like filters, so we could search through the folder. So here we can either search for ZPID, property URL, or address. For our use case, we have address already for a property, so we're going to use address. On the right-hand side, this is how you would programmatically extract the data. We are using no code, but we could see here there are some interesting things like what URL folder that we are extracting data from, which is Zillow-Com property. We are going to use this later on. There are also headers to authenticate ourselves, which we will use. Now, if you go over to the example responses, you can preview what type of data you can receive from this API. We see here that in this case it's null, but you can extract the Zestimate value, living area square footage, if the property has a garage, what the city is, and so much more. I highly encourage you to sift through this and see if there are other elements outside this tutorial that you want to pull out. For the sake of this tutorial, let's get right to it as to what we're going to extract. If you haven't already, make sure you copy your Rapid API key. In the PDF document, I also have a supporting guide on how to do this. Then if you go over to pricing, you should see in your case that you are already subscribed for basic. If you have not subscribed yet, click subscribe. This will allow 45 free property searches per month. Now, depending on your use case, that may seem like very little or a lot. The intent of this tutorial is to help investors, single investors, be able to analyze, say, one of their markets. If you have a buy box that is tight, like looking at only 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, certain square footage, there's not going to be probably more than 40 or so listings anyway in a month. So you should be able to get away with having this basic plan. Now, as you see below, it is 8 cents as of January 2024 if you do go over. You can ask the API maker, the provider, to have a hard limit. I think this one has it. I'm not entirely sure, to make sure that you don't go over in that case. And you could look at more information below. So now we have subscribed to this API, and our next step is integrating it into our workflow. The benefit of using an API is that instead of, say, hiring a virtual assistant to copy information for us, we're able to do it at a very low cost automatically. So you're going to create a new step and search for webhooks by Zapier. This is a premium feature, which is why you need to upgrade to the starter plan. If you know Python, you could use Python code to use a request to get this data too. The event is get. We're going to get data. Click continue. And for our action, we need to specify what URL we're getting data from. I had mentioned previously that in Rapid API under endpoints, we have the URL specified here. You can copy the URL and bring it over into your Zap. Then for our parameters, what are we asking or trying to extract from this API? We want to get address. Type in address. Next, for what our address is, we've already been able to get that by extracting the address from the subject line. So here we're specifying from step 3 that we want to input this output value, which is our address. This will tell the API, hey, go get me property details on this address. Leave the default values here. Down below for headers, you will enter X Rapid API key, enter your Rapid API key, and then x-rapid API-host, which is the following string. Then click continue. Once you test the step, you will see that we have made a request to our API. We have now extracted information on property details. We can now pass this to our Google Sheets. If you want to see how many requests you've made, you'll be able to see all your APIs up here where it says My APIs, and it will tell you if you've reached your 45 limit or not. If you have over 45 properties here, then you've reached your limit as well for that particular month. Now let's go over to my favorite part, which is getting all of this into a Google Sheets. So we're basically creating our own database of all of the properties that have come into our email, and we're going to now apply real estate metrics to them. Create your next sheet or next step, which will be Google Sheets. We want to create a spreadsheet row. There's many events you could do with Google Sheets, which is why I use it for a lot of other applications as well. So I highly suggest to review this, but for this use case, we're going to create a new spreadsheet row. Click continue and make sure you connect to your Google Sheets account. You have 2 options here. One, you could purchase my spreadsheet. If you want to use the same exact one, I'm going to go through it anyway within this tutorial, or you can just create your own, follow similar steps. It's that easy. So click continue. For your action, you're going to choose your Google Drive, which should just be a singular Google Drive. Your spreadsheet, I've uploaded the spreadsheet, which is demo, new property listings from email. Whatever you name your spreadsheet is what you're going to be able to find it as. choose your worksheet. I have two tabs here. I have where I have all my properties, and then I have my assumptions, which will include my down payment percentage and other rates that will help to assess my calculations. Going over to our ZAP, we now want to auto-populate this. I'm going to remove some of my text so that you could see it live. So going to properties, I am going to remove what I have here and some of my other values so that you could see in real time how these are all calculated. We want to test with Zapier to bring in our data into Google Sheets. First thing you want to do is enter in different columns. I already have columns here that I deem important. So these are street address, price, beds, baths, and square footage, attributes of a property. You can choose more attributes from that API response if you see fit. So the way I'm assigning this is that I could see my column here, street address. Once I click within the space, I can go to step 4 where we got those property details and look for address. There are a lot of variables here because we get all the information that is on a page. To simplify it, I search here street address, and then I can more easily find that value and click it. Now that I've found that value, I do that for other variables as well: price, bedrooms, bathrooms, and living area. Going back to the spreadsheet, we can see those fields auto-populate. So let's go through these fields each one by one. So we have our property attributes in light blue. You can also bring in more property attributes like, say, lot, square footage, zoning if you'd like. For now, I'm just having some quick hitters. Then you can have real estate metrics. So I'm calculating cash flow, cash on cash return ratio from square footage to bedroom. You could see the formula right in here, very simple. I'm taking cell C2, which is bedrooms, and dividing that into square footage to see what that value is. I'm actually going to change this here to just plain text or just a number. And say if you have a requirement, maybe you're looking for a ratio that's 600, for example. And for your area, you know that if the ratio is 600, there's the opportunity to add a bedroom. This would help to signal that. Then I have the rent value brought in. Going back to Zapier and going to our action. After I entered in those property attributes, I left those metrics blank because those are being calculated within our Google Sheets formula. I entered in rent by searching rent Zestimate, and then I'm leaving the following blank. To calculate our metrics, we need to have total income and total expenses. So to get total expenses, or income, we have rent and this open value if there's ability to add additional income. Maybe you charge extra for parking. Then I have different expenses. So our total initial expenses, when we're putting money down for the property, when we first purchase it, what is it that we need? Typically for an investment purchase, if you're not living in it and it's straight for investment, it is usually 20% for a single family home and can be 25% for a multifamily property. In this case, you can go over to assumptions and you could change this value. If you're doing a house hack, it could be as low as 3.5%. You can also change the terms, so how many years you'll be holding the loan or responsible for it. Then closing costs, which is typically around 3%. You could change this here, as well as interest rate. You could even set it up that you have a Zap that automatically retrieves the latest interest rate from, say, the Fred API, which is a government source. But for now, I'm just manually inputting it for simplicity. Once we have our assumptions on the first sheet, we could see that we have formulas in order to calculate what that down payment and closing costs are. Why I like to have this separated out into two different sheets is because if we have, say, 30 properties here over the last 30 days, interest rates might change, or maybe even I've considered a different loan product. So we can easily make that change in the first sheet and see all the subsequent properties update. So for the sample property, it's $375,000. If I am just going to invest in it, not do a house hack or anything creative, it is going to be approximately $86,000 for total initial expense. Then we have, based on those attributes in that first sheet, what mortgage costs would be, which is about $1,880. Then we are bringing in additional attributes that we can calculate what our monthly expense will be. Going back to our Zap, there's additional fields that we're able to get from that API. This includes monthly HOA fee, annual homeowners insurance, and property tax rate. As a quick refresher, you click within the cell, you then search on your step, so in this case, step 4, and then you could type up top property tax rate as I have, and you could see that value. Once you click it, it will then tell Zapier each time to extract this attribute and put it into Google Sheets. For the subsequent fields, I'm leaving that blank because that is subject to our assumptions. Leaving blank property taxes, as that's going to be the property tax rate as well related to the price of the property, vacancy, management fee, and maintenance. You can be as conservative or as aggressive with these numbers as you'd like. For example, if you're going to manage the property on your own, you can set this to 0 unless you deem that your time is worth at least a certain percentage of money. With that, our total monthly expenses are about $2,700. And we could see, based on the initial rent that we've received from Zillow, that it's a little less than $2,300. So in this case, we would be at negative cash flow with a cash on cash return of around negative 6%. When looking at the Zestimate is a lot more accurate in certain areas than others. So if I go here and search Zillow Zestimate coverage and accuracy, you could see for yourself. They have their own page, which is here, and you could look based on your region, even down to the county level, how accurate is the Zillow Zestimate, and likely as accurate as the rent Zestimate. Now, for my area, Tampa, Florida, for on-market properties, the median error is actually less than 2%, which means it's pretty accurate. And I've seen this as I go through my market. However, that might not be the case for you, especially if it's a smaller market. So I highly suggest to review that as well. Maybe even look at other rent sources like Rentcast and Rentometer as well. So now that we've set up our Google Sheets, we have accomplished our Zap. We can then go up top and click Publish. By publishing your Zap, it will now automatically be triggered each time you have a new listing matching that search. If you go back, you will see it in this view without the edit. And taking one more step back, you could also see it within your dashboard. You can monitor your Zap and look to see when it runs, receive emails when it does, and also be alerted with any errors. You've been able to accomplish creating a Zap for email new listings. You're able to automatically analyze deals by setting up a workflow without any code. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to actually send yourself text messages and your agent emails for properties that meet your criteria. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. Thanks.